Good morning, everybody. So I didn't even know what I was going to talk about today. I knew I was going to talk about something, and I've been seeing all of the news feed, everything comes through, and everyone's talking about September 11th, which, of course, relative to which side you believe in, it's going to be something that's going to mean something to you. And then, of course, I'm seeing through my news feed all of the chemtrails stuff, people talk about chemtrails. And then what else am I seeing? Oh, yeah, I'm seeing everybody's sickness, right? I'm going through my news feed and hear about somebody going to the hospital, somebody feeling sick, somebody dealing with a behavior problem with their family, somebody dealing with somebody slighting them, right? Getting triggered, right? I would say that, yes, I am in that area too, right? So we're seeing a lot of evidence of some severely mutated people, society, world. So I'm looking like, September 11th. What the hell is September 11th? I mean, back when it happened, I remember I was very, very scared, thinking that we're under attack, totally traumatized like all of you. I mean, the world was like just hurting and everything, and you're watching everything over and over again, you're re-traumatizing yourself, and then you're crying and all that. And that was back, gosh, when I just came back from Mississippi. So, and I was in this job, one of my first jobs that was in an office, and I was so proud of myself. And and then this happened, and then all of a sudden the world changed, right? So I was under the impression it was one story. So that's what I believed in, right? Because that's all I knew. But I didn't think anything of it. I think I went to college class with Chapman University over in Folsom, and the professor showed some movie that had a totally different narrative. And I was just like, what? And it was interesting because this is a professor, this is like for adult school. So when I look back on it, hindsight's 2020, I'm like, wow, he was one of those truthers that were around, and I didn't really recognize it because it was so foreign to me. I mean, I'm watching the news. That's all I would listen to was the news. I wasn't listening to any radio talk show host or any podcast back then. This is in 2001, 2002, right? And I wasn't listening to any Sirius satellite radio. I mean, all I was dialed into the matrix. I plugged in. And so I went to class and I saw this movie in one of our classes. It was just kind of like, oh, how weird. But then I just let it go because it really didn't resonate with me. Good morning, everybody. So then it was years later when I, was listening to Alex Jones on Sirius Satellite, Infowars, and I was just like, oh, wow. Learned about like the vaccines, all the different conspiracies, and of course, there was the whole 9/11 was an inside job. So, yeah, Alex Jones. So anyways, so I listened. And that's what then created my whole protocol. So right now I'm not going to be answering too many questions. I'm going to go through this information. So just listen and you'll get whatever I'm trying to say. Okay. So then, and that's what then created my whole protocol, because I started listening to all these a different narrative. So you have one narrative, right, that you listen to from radio, CNN, Fox, NPR, Mother Jones, all the different outlets out there, right? And then now you have another narrative, which is in the truther community. So now you have two different narratives. And now you're like, what the hell do I believe, right? What the hell do I believe? Well, I mean, hey. So fast forward. Right? Fast forward. So I started believing the whole conspiracy stuff because it was totally different than what I was, believing. And then it made sense to me. And because I'm seeing all these different disconnects. Thing with Enron. I mean, what woke me up was the fact that Barack Obama and George Bush and all of the presidents, that like Clinton and all that, they're the ones that's supposed to know everything, right? And oversee all the different agencies that were corrupt. Thing with Enron, WorldCom, all of these different, things that are going on. And I'm like, who is supposed to be watching? Who's the watchdogs? Who's watching the watchdogs? How are they allowing these things to happen under their watch? Because I know for a fact in my household, if something was, not right, and I have a hand on all the finances, for the most part. Now, my husband, yeah, he can go and get advances on his paycheck, and I wouldn't even know the difference. And so whatever he brings home is whatever he brings home, unless I look at his paycheck stuff. But he doesn't really do that. Or if he does, he lets me know, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't really worry about it too much because he's very responsible with his money. So, but for the most part, in your household, in your roof with like 10 different rooms, you know exactly what is going on. And if you don't, then you are not taking personal responsibility for your position. And so if you're shocked and surprised, it's because you never took proactive measures to make sure that you understand what is going on in the world around you or in your own household. That you let somebody else take the helm and take the reins, and you absolve yourself of responsibility. So I'm like, how is this happening? My mother had major control in her household. She knew exactly every penny that came in and came out. And she took care of the finances in the house. My dad did too, but she was ultimately the one that took care of things. So it's like, well, I'm watching my mother, who's very responsible. How does she, she took care of everything. There was no surprises in her world when it came to finances. How the hell is this a shock to our president that Enron and WorldCom and all these different things are going up in flames? There had to be some kind of red flag that they purposely ignored, or they just made sure they didn't know about it. They turned their head in a different direction. So that's when I started believing the conspiracies, because I know for a fact how powerful I am in my own household, as well as how powerful my mother is in her household, as well as how powerful all of you, if you're paying attention, are in your each household. So when someone runs a country and they have people at the helm, then somebody has to take personal accountability, and the person that's in charge needs to take even more personal accountability, because they were the ones that said that they would take responsibility for the country. And when things go awry, what the hell, what were you doing? Taking vacations? What, right? So that's what had me figure out that something was going on, that there is some ounce of truth to some of these conspiracies that are out there. So I, so I was on the truck and I listened to all this stuff, and then finally, fast forward, I created a protocol. Okay. My protocol, which is Jilly Juice from jillyjuice.com. And it's a trifecta type of process. It's a healing symptom management program. It is a drink, and it is a diet. Okay, it's a very loose diet, but it's strategic. So my protocol deals with 3 separate concepts: the laws of the human body, which is the immune system, and the elemental composition of the human body, the laws of the universe, balancing forces, and positive and negative elements, creating a response, an immune response, or an environmental response. So when you take in, because homeostasis gets interrupted by 3 different ways, and you'll see that in my book. And that's an immune response, but relative to what you call that immune response is relative to what the context, what triggered that immune response. So one could be taking in a poison. That would upset homeostasis, create an immune response. Another would be taking in massive amounts of nutrition. That would create another immune response or a homeostasis interruption. And the other one would be taking away a certain element that your body is used to, like a drug or an alcohol. That would also upset homeostasis and create an immune response. So these are the laws of the universe, as well as the human body. Okay. And then when you're out there in the environment, when you put it in like Clorox and pine sol together, or baking soda and apple cider vinegar, it creates a reaction. Okay, these are all laws of the universe. All right, and then there's laws of nutrition. The third thing is laws of nutrition. When you're dealing with your internal universe, which is your body, there is specific laws that is relative to, and the purpose of your body. So there's laws of nutrition. All right, so this is the world that we live in. And every single action that's out there is based upon your internal universe. So we know now that reproduction is much like the 4 seasons in our environment. Okay, so remember, what happens out there is also what's happening inside. Winter is equal to death, summer is life, fall is degeneration, and spring is regeneration. So when the body is severely mutated, It needs to make copies of itself, hence reproduction, as well as sexual orientation, regardless of the outcome. So severely mutated people will create mutated weather. Look at our weather. Our weather, with this flow coming in, with all these different hurricanes and droughts and flooding and all of this stuff, is based upon our society completely mutated. Our leaders are completely mutated. Look at Bill Clinton. Look how aged and old he is. He was on a trajectory of death. Look what happened with Monica Lewinsky, what he did with her. He was on a trajectory of death. When you have a severely mutated internal environment, you're not going to make the best choices, or you'll make very stupid choices based upon short-term gains. So severely mutated humans in our world create very severely mutated weather and foreign policy. Hence the chemtrails and 9/11. So 9/11, I mean, my 9/11 is much like my protocol. You have one experience, right? Whatever that is. And then you'll have two different perspectives. It's either, it was either the Iraqis or the Arabs, right? Which is one narrative. Or it was our government, the other narrative. How do you know which one is true? Well, that's based upon the laws of the universe, science. If you don't know the laws, you will believe all the stories. So now we have to look at, with my protocol in 9/11, there are so many stories about Jillian that everyone's believing because they don't know the laws of the human body. So they're believing all of the stories. No different with 9/11. People don't know the laws of demolition or explosions or planes hitting a building because they've seen things happen in the different context of a plane hitting a building, and yet the building didn't fall, and neither did building number 2 fall. I mean, things around them didn't just fall from 1 or 2 planes hitting a building, right? But somehow it looked like a controlled demolition. Now, I don't know what exactly is true, but it comes down to the architects and the engineers who know the laws of explosions and demolition and the laws of jet fuel and all of that stuff. I can't begin to tell you because I'm not an architect or an engineer, but those people are. So wouldn't we be incumbent to listen or do our own research on what would bring a building such as the World Trade Center to come down from 2 planes or not? I don't know. Who the hell knows? I have no idea. So I'm more inclined to sort of lean on the side of the conspiracy, only because we are dealing with very mutated leadership who are making decisions based upon who knows what. We have so many stories out there. So now we have to look at what are the laws, what's going on. And in a lot of ways, does it even matter? At this point, does it even matter? Is it going to make a difference in your world? Whether it was the Iraqis or whether it was or the Saudi Arabians or whether it was our government. Because at this point, we got to stop looking at the past so much and start creating our future. Because our future is going to be based upon how well we can fix ourselves so we're not repeating history over and over and over again. Because if it wasn't for 9/11, then it would have been Pearl Harbor, and before that, it would have been something else like Oklahoma or all these other types of terrorist actions, right? And I'm like, all of this stuff is based upon, a mutated human race. So at this point, what we really need to focus on, and also with the chemtrails too, the chemtrails is a direct reflection of what's going on down here. So those of you who are activists against the chemtrails, you need to get your internal universe completely balanced so you can talk intelligently about chemistry and science and balancing forces. Because if you can take Viagra and make a guy's dick get hard, then you can completely make tornadoes and create hurricanes based upon putting two different forces together and making them clash. I mean, if you know how, if you know meteorology, you know what elements will create a specific situation. I mean, all the answers are in college when it comes to what would create the right conditions for a catastrophic tornado or a hurricane, and then what they're doing in the skies. So we need to be very educated on what goes on internally in our own universe for us to even begin to change what goes on out there. And hence, that's what why it is we're having all this catastrophic crazy weather, and why it is we keep having to revisit 9/11, because we haven't learned from our past. So now we have the opportunity with my protocol to get your internal universe balanced. And the ones that are still making the stupid decisions out there, they will eventually fall away. They will die off. And then we're going to have people who are balanced in our society making the decisions and waking people up by speaking to their listening, by saying, hey, doesn't it strike you kind of funny that this happened, knowing that this is the rules and the laws of this specific, the human body or chemical reactions? And so we got to let go of emotion and stop playing this divide and conquer and start speaking intelligently. But how can you speak intelligently if you can't clear all the fog and all the crap that's in your gut, your second brain? So anyways, well, of course there's patents for the weather. Yes, Tanya, there really is. I mean, there's so much going on with all the different science and patents and viruses and weather stuff. And it's going to take a minute for us to change where we are and what we're doing. But the more of us that are aware of what's going on and we change our insides and we get everybody else to change their insides, and there's people that, there is groups of people who are doing the protocol, whether they're vegans, vegetarians, there's going to be people, there's people like, I'm sure in Hollywood, that I'm sure there's people in government that are like looking at this protocol and they're going to do it. And guess what? They don't even know how it's going to change them. So we just have to keep impressing upon ourselves and our friends and family, just check out Jillian's protocol, because you never know who it is that you're going to turn on to this and what they may be in the future as far as making the major decisions in our government. Because people rise up and get to a certain point all the time. You never know who's going to get into office that's doing the protocol, that's going to make wiser decisions, going to figure out how to deal with foreign policy. You never know. But with the trajectory of death that we're on, we can't possibly make good decisions if we're dealing with so many parasites and fungus. Okay, so it's not going to be like, right away. It's going to take time. But it starts off with you. It starts off with all of you chemtrail activists, all of you people who are out there in the public eye, who have a following, who have a, who are an influence, to start educating yourself and changing your internal universe, and stop playing in the matrix when you're so against the matrix. When you're a chemtrail activist and you are pushing pills, powders, and supplements, that is a disconnect. You are still in the matrix talking double speak. I've talked to some chemtrail activists on the phone, and they still want to go and talk and go and partake in supplements. So what really their focus is really just to create all of this chaos, but really do nothing about it in their own internal universe, because their whole claim to fame is, well, I would rather be all active but do nothing about what truly is going on. They've lost sight of what they truly believed in because the parasites and their fungus have taken over. And I have a lot of my chemtrail activist friends that are still on Facebook, still doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. You'd think they figured it out by now. Oh no. They know it all, because their parasites are hive-minded, and they have worked. They have now Well, yeah, they're working with other parasites. They're doing the same thing. They're all working in concert together. Because in a lot of ways, that could be the conspiracy out there, is to get people so distracted by the external, they do nothing with the internal. So, yeah, it's going to take time for us to release the past and create a future. But September 11th is an inside your gut job, because relative to your insides, it's going to be relative if we're going to be repeating history, whether it's in our own household or whether it's out there in society. And it's going to take a minute because we are not in control, but we are in control. But it's going to take time because there are so many dynasties out there that are keeping, the 1%, right, are keeping track of all of the monies and the laws and creating the legislation. And they're basing, and of course, they're making these laws based upon, what worked for them. And they're going to still keep passing the reins down into their family until their family dies off. Or until we are a mass amount of numbers that are strong enough to figure out a different strategy. Because right now, this whole voting thing is not really a strategy. It's just more smoke and mirrors. I know it seems like Trump is great, and he may very well be very great, but he also needs to do the protocol because he's aging rapidly, which means that when you're aging rapidly, you cannot be making good, sound decisions based upon the future. You can't be. Because when you're on the protocol, you'll be making proactive decisions that is going to mitigate having to react and being shocked and surprised. So Trump needs to do this damn protocol so he can be more proactive. So anyways, well, I'm sure the chemists don't know about Wilhelm Reich and Oregon energy. I'm sure there's a lot of that. But it's not just even doing that. It's when we get when we get our internal universe figured out, then there's different ways that we manifest the information where it's not so henny penny, the sky is freaking falling, which I see in so many chemtrail activists. The sky is falling, we're all gonna die, and it's now it's like, okay, let's try a different tactic that's gonna get you a different result. Okay, we have people that are doing the Oregon energy, they're doing translators, they have all that stuff, but we're still having crazy weather. So there has to be something different that we have to do to get the point across. And that takes each individual person to get their insides figured out. So 9/11 is an inside your gut job. It really is. And it's very appropriate today for me to talk about that. And then, and then I have something else going on later on today too. So I just wanted to focus on that because I was thinking about, I'm seeing all this stuff coming through my newsfeed, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's another divide and conquer. You have one side that says, oh, it was all the Iraqis and the Arabs, and we hate all the, and no. We cannot paint that kind of a broad stroke. And that's the whole divide and conquer, is to blame it on somebody, right? Whether it's a government or whether it's a specific country or race. That's the wrong way to approach it. The reason why it happened is because there's other things that are going on that needed to happen. Look at the outcome. We have TSA. So they created more jobs. Look at the TSA. Look at all these different measures, these different legislations, these different things put into place. We created more bureaucracy. That's what happened, which translates into money, right? Every disaster like Florence is going to create more money for people to then go and rebuild, and insurance, and then, contractors, and who the hell knows what is going to come out of all of these catastrophes. So that's what's going on, is that they're creating stories. I mean, look at on television, Netflix. You know how many Netflix original series is based upon what happened in 9/11, what happened in Oklahoma, what happened with Katrina, and now we'll probably have Aunt Flo, what happened in Thailand. All of these crazy natural disasters is creating a narrative, a storyline to then sell you a bunch of crap, because commercials are injected every 10 minutes. We're being manipulated. That's what I'm trying to say, is we're being manipulated. So now we have to start looking at what is our future now? Is it about all of this manipulation and creating narratives so we can sell a story, or can we do something different? But I don't know what. But it's going to take each and every one of us to start planting seeds. That if my protocol is challenging and basically calling the system a liar, then my God, there's probably something to the 9/11 conspiracy stuff. Because now you have an option of two different narratives that you never even thought of. So that's great. So now that we have to look at the laws of the universe, putting different chemicals together and seeing what happens. And then we look at, oh wow, what we can do with the chemtrails. I mean, if biotech can create elements and flesh and then create an immune response or create mutations or create a specific outcome like Viagra, you know, erections, then obviously if we know how weather works, we can go and put specific elements in the universe to create specific weather patterns. We can make all of the USA summer a nice mild summer that's like the Garden of Eden, with everything thriving and beautiful, no death, no major winter, everything is thriving and beautiful, right? We could make all of the US to be a great conditions for growing bananas and tropical stuff. We can do that. We have that power. If we can go and mutate humans and make drugs for humans, then we can go and modify the weather based upon our vision of utopia or the destruction of Satan's kingdom. I mean, that's how much power humans have. So we really have to start looking at my protocol and understanding the balancing forces, the elements, the laws of the universe, chemistry, all of that. Okay, so they're not necessarily destroying, but they're creating homeostasis interruptions, but not in a good context, because you really can't destroy Earth. Because yes, you can destroy certain things. They don't want to destroy themselves, but they can create upsets to then herd people in different directions. Just like when you pour water on an anthill, you're not exactly killing all the ants, you're scattering them. So that way you then can take all of your corporations and start making malls and condominiums, because everybody's scattered, they don't want to rebuild. And then all of a sudden somebody has a huge, beautiful resort there, right? Oh, wow. You know, so because no matter what, the planet will find a balance. It may be kind of like upset, because the body will always find balance, so will the Earth. But what they're doing is they're manipulating it based upon their intentions of, could be money, and it could be, you know, partnerships, it could be a lot of things, right? But they don't necessarily want to kill humanity or kill Earth, because they still, the people who were pulling the strings still want to live, and they still want to, you know, have the slave system out there to keep you working. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is that so eventually we just have to open our eyes and understand the laws, and then we get people who are smart that can get in and then start influencing the decisions, the legislation. All right, that's all I'm trying to put out there. But the only thing I could do at this point is drop seeds to the right people who can make a difference. And sometimes it's bearing a kid that isn't so mutated that's going to cause issues, because you never know. One child that's born in our society that's on the protocol could be the next president, could be the one that makes the major awesome decisions that's going to change our trajectory. You never know. So it's a case, it's you know, it's each individual. Anyways, all right, I got some things I got to do. I need to write some stuff. I got a long day ahead of me, and just want you guys to, before you spew out the whole 9/11 is inside job, start being more thoughtful and talk about the chemistry of 9/11 and the, you know, and start referring to the architects and engineers, and start looking deeper than just whatever narrative that someone told you. Start looking deeper. And then somebody asks, well, why would the government do that? Well, why would anybody do anything, right? It is about money. It is about creating chaos, creating order out of chaos. And then you can, because any type of upset of homeostasis then creates a different trajectory, right? So anytime that you change your diet, because there's a reason why you change your diet, something is not working, whatever it is. So anytime you upset homeostasis with either a catastrophic event or changing your diet, it's because there's a reason behind it. And then the outcome is the intention, especially if you're intentional and you follow to whatever it is that your current intention, your motivation is. And there's a lot of money in chaos because you gotta rebuild. You gotta go in a different direction, whatever that is. So anyways, y'all have a good day. Just, be mindful of what you post out there and be thoughtful and don't spam. Because everyone that's getting kicked off of Facebook is because you're spamming or you're violating the community standards. Know the community standards and follow them so that way you can still get your point across without getting kicked off every 25 days or 30 days. All right, bye.